Hello, I'm Julia Cline. I recently did a demonstration for East Valley Artists. We unfortunately forgot to start the video, and I'm going to have to reconstruct the first part of it for you. The demonstration was on using Yupo paper experimentally. Yupo paper is actually a plastic sheet that you use for watercolor. So it's not actually paper at all. So Yupo paper is an oxymoron. The demonstration was a hands-on activity. So the first activity that we did was a non-representational abstract using found objects. The second one was a more representational abstract, still using the found objects plus some cat litter. And the third thing was a figurative project, which required a dried background. So prior to the demonstration, I recorded a short video showing the participants how to apply watercolor to the Yupo using either spray bottles with watercolor in them or paintbrushes, so that they could have their dried backgrounds ready for the third project before we began. So the first thing you'll see is that video showing you how to apply the watercolor to the paper. That's not paper, that's actually plastic. So that's the first thing you'll see. Then there'll be some reconstruction of the first demonstration of the found object abstract. And then it should be smooth sailing from there because we recorded the rest of it. So hopefully you can follow this and you'll look for our demonstrations and our hands-on activities. We have them once a month on the third Thursday of every month. We're doing them by Zoom currently during the pandemic. You can look on our Facebook page and also at our calendar at eastvalleyartists.com or eastvalleyartists.org on the web. Okay? Hopefully you'll follow this and it'll be great. Hi, I'm Julie Cline. I'm leaning in here because I have this iPad upside down. I'm going to show you how to make a background for a figure that we're going to do at our EVA demo on Thursday night, the 17th of December. And I wanted to do this so that people who make puddles won't be disappointed if their background doesn't dry in time to do it that night. So I think that people who want to try the figure for that activity, for activities that night, should go ahead and do their backgrounds beforehand. So that's why I'm doing this video, to show people how to do that. This is the figure that I sent out as source material. It's a kitty cat, of course. I have a lot of them. You can see that the darkest part of the area of the picture is here. So the first way I'm going to show you to do it is with spray paint. First thing I do is mist the Yupo with some water. I'm not making puddles. I just have a thin mist on here. I doubt you can see it on the iPad, but there aren't a lot of drips. See, when I hold it up like this, it's not dripping down onto my surface I'm working on. So he's backlit. So I'm going to make him backlit. Put my light colors around the outside and my darker colors in the inside. He is a gray tabby, and he's a little pink. I know him. You can make him any color you want to. You don't have to make him a gray tabby. You can make him an orange tabby, any color you want to. But he's a little pink on the inside, so I'm going to add some red to his middle. My spray is not working very well right now, so I may have to come back to that later. But I'll add some pink to the center, and then I'm going to put this indigo color in the middle for his main part of his body, the dark part. And I think I want to add a little blue. And you can put any colors you want. He can be a psychedelic kitty, I don't care. All right, but I don't want to get too much. I've almost gotten too much there. I'm going to get a puddle here. Actually, this is good because these kind of puddles are not going to dry quickly. And if you get them during the class, they're not going to dry, so they'll need to dry overnight. If you are more restrained and you get areas more like this that are close but not quite touching, as they spread out, they'll get closer and closer and they'll cover the paper, but they'll more likely dry in a shorter period of time. Okay, so I'll show you how something like this dries. It looks like it's got a lot of, but that's how something like that dries. So it's a lot more covered than it looks like. And because we're going to move the paint around on top of this Yupo paper, it doesn't matter that it's a little uneven. So don't worry about that. Okay, now it's time for I want to show you how to put a background on if you're using paintbrushes instead of spray paint. The first thing I've done is make puddles of paint on my palette so that I don't have to make them up as I'm putting it on the Yupo paper. So I've got some blues and some pinks and some yellows and browns. All right, here's my picture I'm thinking about. Put my piece of Yupo paper down. The people that I gave Yupo to, I cut their Yupo a little more square than these scraps I'm using. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is wet my paper, and I can do this with a brush or the squirt gun. Now, I'm squirting here. All right, and I've got a lot of water on here. If you got water and it puddles off like that, it's draining off like that, do drain it off. You don't want that much water on there. But you do want your Yupo paper completely wet. So wet it completely because you're going to be painting wet into wet. So you want it wet completely, but you don't want huge amounts of water on it. But you do want it completely wet. It's a little bit different from what you did with the spray paint. All right, so then you take your brush. It doesn't matter whether it's round or flat. And you start with your color. The dark color's in the middle where he is. That's what I'm doing. But you see, it's going to spread out because it's wet into wet. And I want to make him kind of gray. So I'm making I'm letting the colors mix on the paper. I like to let them mix naturally on the paper. So I'm trying to make a gray here, and then I'll put a little bit pink in. Remember, I like it. He's a little pink, especially around his head and his paws. His head and his paws. He's a little bit pink. So I'll let that kind of mix naturally, and then I'm going to put the backlighting. I want to get that brush a little cleaner before I do that, so it's a little more yellow. Yeah, I've got some quint gold in here, quinacridone gold, and some just regular Orlin, and then my browns, because he's on a countertop. And all right, and so I want to have all the colors everywhere, all over the piece, to make it look a little more cohesive. So I'm gonna the other thing you can do if you want to get it to cover your paper is nude around like this. You could do this with the spray paint too also. All you want is a very nice background. It could be smooth or it could be speckled like I showed you with the spray paint. And you can have a smooth or a spray or a speckled background for either project, whether you're using spray paint or your regular brushes. So it just doesn't matter. You also just want some splotches in it. Most of this will go away because you're I'm going to put a little more paint in here to cover these up. I don't want big holes in there because I want paint to I want to be able to lift off paint, right? And he's going to be a little multicolored, but that's okay. Also, he's straight across here, straight across the top. So I want to get some of this gray going up in here and down. And he has a shadow down here that I want to make sure I get some. I don't want him to be a blob, exactly a blob in the middle, but so I want to get some of his gray and brown colors into the other parts of the picture. But there, I'm going to have the background, the main colors of the picture are already on the piece of paper. They'll dry that way, and we'll do the figure. That's all. December 17th, East Valley Artists. All you have to do is respond on Facebook or email us at eastvalleyartists@gmail.com. This begins the section of the demo that we did not record. I began with some examples for the non-representational abstract that we were doing. What I do is add watercolor onto the Yupo. Then I let it dry and seal it with a clear sealer. I then wash some of the sealer and the watercolor off. I add more watercolor, let it dry, seal it, and I repeat that process until I get a look that I like. This is an example of one that I did several years ago that I really enjoyed and I loved. It had a kind of primordial ooze kind of look to it, and I enjoyed doing this one. I did not, however, use any of the found objects to create shapes in this one. It was just the watercolor itself lying on top of the Yupo and then each layer drying on top of the next layer. In this next example, I did layer using some found objects. Actually, what I did was cut up some manila folder into some long, skinny triangles, and I made some kind of floral spirals out of them, and I layered, made a pattern, sealed it, added watercolor, rinsed it off, some of it off, sealed it again, added watercolor, and the pieces of manila folder again to add another pattern on top of that. And then I sealed that and washed it off and made a next layer, and I did that for 3 layers, and then I thought it was too red, so I added a complementary color of the kind of turquoise blue, and I sealed it and rinsed it again to get some of the shape back because I had covered up all the shapes of the skinny triangles. Finally, I rotated the piece and cropped it to get this effect. It's not quite this dark, it's a little more bluer and a little more turquoise than this, but you can get the idea. Cropping is often something that you need to do these things to get your points of interest into some nice places so that you have a good design. This final piece is something that I did just for this class. I wanted to create something with found objects and shapes laid into the watercolor just to show you what you could do with just one layer. Here I've used my long triangles that I cut out of manila folder and some staples, and I cannot remember what the objects in the lower right hand corner are. I just don't remember what they were, but they did have some interesting shapes to them. And then I added a lot of bright color in these, and I always let the colors mix on the paper, on the plastic. It's not paper. Remember, it's a plastic surface, and the color just sits on top of it. finally, before we started working on our projects, we talked a little bit about sweet spots. When you divide your paper into thirds vertically and horizontally, where those lines intersect are places that are called sweet spots that you can put your centers of interest. You think about these even when you're talking about an abstract painting, not just when you're talking about a representational one. It gives the abstract a little more oomph. Of course, you don't have to do this. It's just something that helps you if you need it. Another thing that can help you is if you think about one of the very simple basic designs that you use when you construct a representational painting, the cross or the large volume versus two small volumes, or the L or the Z. Sometimes it's called the S. These are simple designs that help you construct an abstract. And give it more interest so that it's just not a glob of paint or a flat wallpaper kind of picture. It really has places that the eye is drawn to look at and study, and other places for the eye to rest, so that it has there's a sense of design behind the painting. If you get something you really like, you don't have to go to the next step. You can just leave it and let it dry like that. Okay, so in Yupo, fun things happen, and sometimes you'll get something you really like, and you want to leave it like that, and that's perfectly fine. This glue isn't working real well. Ooh. Okay. All right.
Now, Julie, I have a question, because
Yes.
you were mentioning the composition part of this, and sorry for all of you painters already. This is an abstract, but I'm still trying to think about it as it has some composition. So what type of composition are you going for there?
I'm not going for a composition yet.
Okay.
I'm
so
just getting colors on that I like.
Okay.
All right. I'm just going for colors that I like. I'm thinking I'm going for these are colors I like, sort of. I mean, I like this color combination. Okay. I'm using colors I like. I might put a little more purple some places.
Ooh.
Yeah. If you add the darks, that's what Becca was talking about the depth. The darks really add the depth. See, this little guy is having a hard time squirting. Sometimes my bottles have hard time squirting. You have to turn them upside down, just like you do regular spray can. But the darks really add depth. I have some kind of indigo color. I don't know whether I want to use it or not, but it really, ooh. It'll make it look, you think you don't want it, and then you put it in there and it gives it a lot of stuff. So now I've got a lot of color on there and a lot of water. And what I want to do is take some of my interesting things I have here. This is I don't know what it's from. I can't remember, but it's got teeth on it. It's a circle and it's got teeth on it. So I'm going to put it there. Now I'm thinking about my sweet spots. What kind of interest do I want to put in here? I don't know why I'm stuck on circles. Here's a ball bearing. So it's going to have lots of little dots. I would really like these circles to overlap. So if I want them to overlap, I've got to use something like a rubber band. See how that's going to have dots when it dries? Oh. So I've got to use something like rubber bands if I want to have them overlap, because these big heavy things won't overlap. Okay. So now this here is sort of at a, I'm not really, it's not very interesting to what I'm doing though. It's kind of a glob. But I can make it a little more interesting by, I've got all kinds of things over here. I've got credit card pieces I've cut up. I've got my father's old, that's a square. And I've put it at another sweet spot to kind of juxtapose against that. Now I can put some of these staples in here to give myself a little bit of an extra, just a little extra different kind of, I don't want to cover it up so much that I have too much going on. But that's what I'm doing. I'm just playing with shapes. And these things, you know, they're all, whatever these are, they live here and they're kind of tying the square and the, so here's one of those, here's one of those poppy seed. I'm going to put this on here and let you watch it straighten out. Okay, that's from the poppy. I really like those curves. I'm so excited about them. And they're just straightened out.
Didn't you spray them with like?
Yes. If you made them, if you made them waterproof, you're right. It would really solve that problem. So now I've got all these circles. I've got that, you know, I don't know why I'm going to throw this thing over here. It's kind of way to the side, but I'm going to throw it over here anyway. Now, and if I smeared that kind of, and I really don't want it to be, I want it to have a lot of, I'm going to add some to it. This is quinacridone coral. I just introduced a new color, which I probably shouldn't have done, but make it a little warmer some places. If I let this dry, this Yupo paper, if I let it dry almost, and I spray alcohol on it, the alcohol will kind of bead up in little, I can't do it now because for it to dry, but it will separate everything out. Let me show you what it does. First, it will separate all the, can you see this right here? Okay, let me do it right here. It'll be easier to see. First, it will make everything separate out. See that? Wow. If it's a little drier than this, it will make it separate out. And as it comes together, it'll stay in little tiny beads like this. And it'll almost look like a bird's egg with the little tiny spots everywhere. But now, if you watch this, it's too wet. It's all going to come together and it won't look like a pattern at all. But if it's a bit drier than this, that's a really neat pattern. It looks like a bird's egg. But you see, I've got a lot of water on here now. Things are flowing in. This is heavy. Things are flowing in toward it. This paper is a little bit bent because it was one of the rolled pieces. This is a scratch on the paper. This is an older piece of paper, so it's got a scratch on it. I'm not sure I care about that. It might just be part of the painting. I can also go back with a brush and put paint in there, and it won't even show when I finish. I'm
So
looking
now we
at,
just set them aside and see what happens.
Let them. Yeah. And if I wanted to, I could sprinkle some. I don't think I want to on this one. I think I just want to let it do its thing. I probably need to repeat a circle or two on this side, just to repeat, you know, to make it be a little bit connected. And then I'll just see what it looks like. And it may look terrible, or it might come out really neat. We'll just see. But that day I was so frustrated and I threw the saw on the paper. it came out such a cool thing. And I put that one on Facebook and it sold in like an hour and a half. It was just incredible. That was a really good year for me. So, okay, how are you doing? How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
See, it's fun, and it doesn't take a long time, but you can get some really neat stuff going. And as I said, if you get something you like, stop. That's the rule. I'm going to get my spray paints out of the way and get my palette over here.
So Julie, one of the things that I noticed was that, like I did this one yesterday, and there are lines that must have been from the paper that kind of show up. It's very interesting.
Okay, who am I looking at that has?
It's Becca.
Oh, hold it up again, Becca.
Yeah, Becca, let me see.
Can you see like the lines that were, it must have been touched by something. I don't know.
Yeah,
and it may not even translate on camera. But like the one that I just did, same thing.
It wouldn't, the paper, the paint wouldn't stick there.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you get too much oil from your finger or something like that. Or I did when I rolled it out for you. It might be my fault. If you get something like you know, my fingers were oily or something, you get too many. If you get fingerprints on, sometimes I'll get a sheet out and I'll put stuff on it and I'll look and there'll be cat paw prints that don't take the. So that you have to be careful about that. So probably that's what happened. And you can flip it. You can use both sides. So, but that's really funny when all right. I also wanted to show you how I make my some of my liquid watercolors. I take these tubes. See this tube of watercolor that I've completely used up. I cut off the crent part because there's not usually any watercolor in it. And I cut off the top. And if I can, I unscrew the top. I might not be able to. But anyway, I dropped this part that has the paint in it into a spray bottle. I usually use my small spray bottles and I cut up the pieces smaller. But this is the only empty spray bottle I had. But when you open these up, they have a lot of paint in them. And see all the paint. So you could put these in here and then you've got yourself another color. It's from your palette, right? That it's a color that you probably like to use. So that's how I get a lot of my spray paints. Anyway, that's how I get a lot of my spray paints as I use my.
Look already.
Yeah. That way I get more variety. The colorations, spray, liquid watercolor, and the other liquid watercolors, they're a lot more intense than the ones that come off your palette. You have to be careful with them. Look at this piece of, see how bright that is? These are colorations watercolors, right? They're really intense. This one I used more of my palette watercolors. Let me, okay, you want me to start on the next one? Do you want me to start? Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm gonna wet my watercolor paper. I'm using this big brush, and I told you all you only need the smaller, medium brushes, and I'm sorry about that. When I wet my paper, I use a large brush. And I want to get enough on it that I'm painting wet into wet, but I don't want huge puddles. So I kind of have to lean to look sideways at it to tell. All right. And I got my palette on the wrong side because That's another thing that Clyde Stout called me. He was watching me paint. He said, Julie, you have your palette on the wrong side. Your right hand, it should be on the right side of your paper. And I had it on the left side. But the pad is on over there and I can't do that. So I'm going to take some colors here that I like and I'm just going to get them on the paper, wet into wet, and let them do their thing. I might think about a little bit about what I'm gonna do for this one. I wanted to show you some pictures of, if I can show you examples. Let me go show you some examples. Before I let you know what we were doing. Let me go show you some examples. Do more a little bit more representational stuff. This is a tree. Can you see the tree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I use string to outline the trunk and make some limbs. And then this is all cat litter up in here, making all the leaves. I use a little cat litter to make some texture on the trunk.
Would salt have a similar effect?
Not on Yupo. Salt will have a great effect on watercolor paper. It doesn't do anything on Yupo.
Oh,
So
okay.
salt does not. Yeah, that's why this cat litter discovery was so good, because salt just doesn't work on Yupo. Then this one is another one that I did. The feathers on this bird, this was for one of our challenges. The feathers on the bird are wild lettuce leaves. They were coming up in the yard, and I went out and picked them of different sizes and put them down in the watery paint. And this was a piece of plastic, something that I was going to recycle that I was cutting up, and I used it to make the tree. And I did think about where I put I really wanted the bird to be landing in light, and I did think about where I put my lights and darks and stuff on this. I did stage this one. And then let's see. And then this is just a silly little one that's not all that great. But the perspective is a little strange, but there are these two kids watching this regatta, and all these are little triangles that I cut when I was cutting up an old credit card. So these kids sitting on the hillside watching the regatta. So what I think I'm going to do. I'm not sure. I'm just going to do something real quick so you can. All right. A little bit of. Well, I'm getting my palette all mixed up. Blue in there. I don't really want that to be green. I want it to be more blue, but. And here is another beauty of Yupo. Okay, I don't want that to be green in there. I'd rather it be blue. So I have this cloth. And I just okay, it's gone. So I can just change that back to blue if I want to. I don't have any. I can make it much bluer. It's still kind of blue green, but that's because I swapped yellow into my blue over here on my palette, and I'll have to clean that out before I can get to my blue. Anyway. Yupo, you can just take it to the sink, wash it off, start over. So if I want to, this is my string that I bought for, I don't know, 75 cents at the Villages at an estate sale. But I cut up a bunch of different lengths of it. Doesn't matter if it falls into the colors on my palette, which it is doing right now. The reason it's better to put your color down first, especially if you're using string to outline anything, is that it holds the string in place. Otherwise, you have all kinds of crazy stuff happening. So I might want to do a little tree line along here. They're not real straight trees. They're just along in here. Maybe they're going to come down this way. Some of them will get bigger as they come down. And this stuff will soak up water, so that the pieces of string will be a lot bigger once they start soaking up the liquid. Take them off the page up here. And I want to make a few more limbs in that. I want them all to be straight sticks. Okay. They're just simple trees. They're not really complex ones. And I'll show you some fun thing. This is another fun thing to put on the, and you can leave this, you can let it sprinkle and leave marks, or sometimes when I spray this is just a regular old scrub pad. Sometimes when I spray the sealer on, I just leave this stuff. So I think it's so cool. It looks really cool on the, it makes really neat a little augment.
Those
I'm
aren't
just
your good,
using it.
those aren't your good scissors, right?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I have a whole bunch of really messed up scissors that I use for stuff like this. Good question. No, my good scissors are hidden away from everybody and far away from my studio, so I won't be even tempted to pick them up. I'm afraid I'll screw them over. So here's just a little bit of stuff down in here, twiggly stuff down in here. And then I'm going to take some cat litter and I'm going to make the
Foliage.
Yeah, I'm making the foliage of these trees. And I'm probably going to add a little bit of, see, I got a little bit close in there, and that might be good for you to see, because it might just it might sort of suck itself together and be a clump. That wouldn't be a bad thing for you to see, because it can really clump. Let me get this. That's going to be the foliage. And I might, if I wanted to, some extra colors and put them in here. So we'll have, and I'll get some darker colors, put it toward the middle of the trees, down to here where there'd be shade in the leaves. Drop the darker colors in. Just drop a little extra in around there. This is where the spray bottles have an advantage over the, see that clump? See, they weren't that close together, but they moved together. They're doing what they're supposed to, what their advertised is doing. This is where the spray bottles have an advantage over the brushes, because if I want to make that dark with a spray bottle, I can just go in there. See, I can put a little shade in there, right? The spray bottle, and that's very easy. And then I can come in with the green or whatever. But with a brush, I really have to. It's a little bit harder. But sometimes when I'm using an old brush, I just go ahead and I have a lot of old brushes. I mean, I have so many brushes that have been worn out, but you don't want to put, I wouldn't put a good brush down in the glitter. But you see how it's starting to pull together, put a little bit too much on. But the truth is, when that pulls off after it dries, it'll have this kind of funny outline, and it'll look like a bunch of leaves. it really doesn't matter. But this is where as I said, the spray paint has an advantage over it's much harder to dribble colors. And I really always like to put orange in my trees. I don't know why. I like to put a little orange in the leaves of trees. Like even when they're green or it's summer or any other season, it's like fall is hidden in there. But you need to get enough color around that when you when you rub that, or when you knock that stuff off, there will be color left on the paper that the cat litter won't have soaked all of it up. So you want to go and do some more different parts of your. See, I got the right amount of water and paint at that point. See, I got a lot off my brush at the right. It's hard to get the right. And then you'll find that some of your brushes are better at doing this than others. You just have to find which brush is best at dropping the paint into the.
Just so you know, I'm messing up my desk thoroughly.
Good. Oh, Marilyn. Oh, good.
I got paint
Wonderful.
everywhere.
Yep. Yep. So I would. Yeah. They really want to have enough paint in there. And then down here, you know, I want to have a few more. Becca, you know what else happens what else happens is I have this taped down because it's some of that curler stuff. But what else happens is the tape will stick to the edges, and then the tape where the tape's been, you can't get paint on. So you have to be careful with Yupo because it's like any other plastic. If stuff gets on it, the paint won't adhere to it, and it'll. So I have these weird little pieces of, I don't know why I want to put these on here, but I want to make some funny little vegetation down here. I want to make some kind of funny little shrub or rocks, or I don't know what they are, but when it comes up, I'll see. And then if I don't like them, I can kind of paint over them. But I want something else down here. I don't want just the trees. I don't want it to be, I'm going to have some.
Julie, are you still planning on using manila folder for something?
That is what you can cut into shapes. If you want to have,
okay.
You can cut into shapes to add. If you want to have somebody walking along here, you can think. That was a good question. Sorry about that. Sorry, I didn't. That your cardstock or your manila folder, you can cut into any shape you want, and make somebody walking along a trail here. Or in fact, I could make this a little stone path, couldn't I? cobblestone path along here.
Watching your creative mind at work is fascinating.
Yes, it is.
You just think of things as you're going along. This would make a kind of fun little path. Little pieces get bigger as they go along. But these are basically my manila pieces. I had so many of those cards that my husband. So you could make a person, you could make anything out of the cardstock that you want to. But as I said, it's not perfectly representational. It's still a little bit abstract, but it's more representational than we did at first. So I'm gonna string this out. So. Okay, now I don't know what I want to do with this space over here. Maybe nothing, maybe something. And there's space in here. And of course, I definitely need the place for the eye to rest, but it seems to me that it would be kind of fun to have something coming in this way. And that would be a good place for the cardstock or the manila folder to do something. Where are those? Put them down somewhere. Here they are. Take these various and sundry cards my husband gave me, and I'll make them do things. Here, say. Stick down into there until the tree covers them up. And I don't want them to be real. Let that be one. I don't want them to be two. And I may have to go back when this is dry. I may have to go back and kind of tweak these because they may not really look all that great. I may have to tweak the paint around them to make them look a little more interesting, or I think that what the word I'm looking for is to make them look more unified is the word I'm looking for, because they may not be really unified right now. Because you see they cut off down here, and I need to make them more unified, so and they don't overlap. This one might need to come up here. I just got the base down here. So to make this look more unified, I may have to come down in and do something, but with my brush. But on Yupo, I could always activate it. So and these, because they're not, I can paint right around them. And then that gives that purple here and purple here, and that gives it kind of a pattern. And if I wanted to, I could put some purple here. And you could argue that I had a cross design. You could argue that. I'm not sure I would, but you could.
Well, that had a huge impact. That had a huge impact.
Did it?
In the composition, yes.
Yeah. And I don't know what I'll do down here, but so, and these will dry very they'll dry with a lot of the plumpness, and they'll they'll be kind of hairy too. They get kind of hairy when they dry. So it's interesting. And up there, I'm losing some color up there, so I might want to find a blue that's not contaminated with too much green and throw it in here. That's pretty green though. but it's okay. Get some more glue going in there.
And at some point you just say, okay, I'm done.
Right.
Okay.
And then
Just
and then
checking.
if I don't like it, I can always just, you know, wash it off and start over.
Or you can just do more to it, right?
Yeah, or I can do more to it.
Okay.
Yep. That's it. So I'm going to put this away. Now I'll move it away. And I'll show you the third project. But and I'm glad that my cat litter flunked, so you can see the foibles you can get into. All right, now let me show you how to do the figure, which is very different from the other things. Let me share my screen real quick. There's little quirks. Okay, so this is the very first one of these I ever did, and it was a sketch I did at Moral Fest, and people sitting in front of me, and it's just a sketch I did, and then I transferred it to Yupo in the method I'm going to show you. And then this is a sketch I did from. I did a sketch from a photo I found on the internet. So, and if anybody believes that, they're got to be nuts. This is my husband and one of our cats. It's not from a photo I found on the internet. But I did that. I wanted to have a newer one. All the others I've done have left. I don't have them anymore. But this is the photograph. I cleared some other things out around, but I found I became interested in just this part of it. Someday I'll do the whole thing, but I found I just became interested in that part of it. And I did a drawing, and then I did this painting. So, and it's just a fun method to do it by. I'm not sure. All right. So I gave you a picture of our little kitty, the same kitty that's sleeping with Tom. His name is, there's Loki. He's Susan. And then I sketched it. Okay, and to make it easier for me to see, I photographed it, and then I traced around the outside of my sketch just to make it easier for me to see, because my sketch is kind of light. And I also, if I'm making the outline easier for me to see, I don't like to do that on my sketches, because I like my sketches to stay the way that I did them. I don't like to mess them up. So what I do is I take that to my light box, and I turn my light box on, which I have backwards. I usually have the switches right here. And I take one of my, I want to show you the difference between this. What I gave you was opaque Yupo, just because I had the most of this is translucent Yupo. It's very different. So you can see how you can see through the translucent Yupo, right? Let's see my sketch. I can even see the sketch through the translucent Yupo. But and this is the opaque Yupo. You can do both of them, but it's much easier to see through the translucent Yupo, right? Can you tell the difference? Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's really much easier to see through the translucent Yupo. But I'm going to use opaque Yupo because that's what I gave you. All right. So I usually taken down. The good thing about working on a light box is you can at least see through. You can at least, if you get out of line, you can at least get lined back up very easily. You can also work if you have a rollout window. You can work on the window. if you do a tiny little bit at a time, you can work on a regular window, but since it's vertical, it's a little bit harder. But because you know, painting on Yupo is like painting on your palette because it's plastic. I have to put this around the edge because the light glaring is too much for me. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take my paintbrush and I'm going to activate the paint inside of the drawing that I have.
Ah.
See? I'm going to activate this paint. But that one on the outside of him, but that's okay. It'll dry back and I can come back and do that work. I got confused about where I was. So I'm activating this paint in the inside of him. Here's his back.
Paint off if you've gotten in an area that you don't want it on.
Absolutely, you can wipe it right off. Yes, you may. That's certainly something you can do. Yep. So right now I'm just getting his outline. So I'll know where he is. I'm not gonna mess with his tail. I'm gonna do that later. I've pretty much activated all the paint in him except for his tail. I'm gonna this off a little bit. So now I need to look at my drawing too for reference, but I see that this side of his ear is very light. So Sloan, I'm going to take that paint off right there because I want him to be dark on that side of his ear. I want that side of his ear to be, and this to be light. This is where you really have to pay attention to your darks and lights. And then he's got lightness on his forehead here. And he's very dark there, but he's got a light patch across here. And I'll turn it on to get his eyes placed because I want him to be exactly the right place, you know. But this here on the either side of his nose is very light. And up here, it's dark here, but right in here, he's very light. And
So you're removing paint
I'm removing paint
in those spots. Okay.
and sometimes I'm mixing it up. But the places that are most important, I'm removing that be light. And then he's got this is his leg, and this is the place right here. I need to make this leg separate from that leg. So I'm going to have to remove a little paint there. And I'll come back. This is where I messed up and I painted outside his leg. I'll come back and I'll make his leg more striped later. But I'm very slowly making him emerge. He's got some whiteness that comes around down here. And to tell you the truth, I play down his stripes a little because I know him and he's not that stripy a kitty. You don't really see his stripes that well. But also just because I really want to emphasize his face. That's the main part of this picture. When you look at him, what you look at immediately is his face. So I don't want a lot of contrast back in here. I want to look at that face. I don't know what he's doing. I know what he wanted. He's saying, "Hurry up, you're too slow getting my food." But I don't want I don't want a lot of contrast here. I don't want my eyes to go there. Yeah, but he does have stripes on his legs though, and I'm gonna have those in here, but I'll come back and I'll make them less prominent. And then along his back, and then I do have to come along and make sure that the edge of him is lighter than the background, right? Because he has to show up, right? He can't be all But anyway, I just work back and forth to do this off of here. Now I've kind of lost him because he's drying fast. So I'll turn my light back on, and I'm looking for my water. And I'll find it again. Here's his paw. I've got too big a brush to tell you the truth. Here's his chest. Okay. Here's his other paw. And he's got such big toes. Kitties have big toes. Because they walk on their toes, they don't walk on their feet. So if I want to get his, I want to get these are the, I want to get those tabby markings around his eyes are real important. They really make a tabby look like a tabby. That M, they have that M pattern over their eyes. That's really important for tabby. And then his little, around his nose, this little part right here is very important. Okay, and then he's got his forehead. I got to get this leg off. This leg off. Come back around here. This leg's much fatter than the other. So I'll come back. I can always put this paint back in. It's very easy to do. Here are his big toes over here. Cat's toes are always bigger than you think they're going to be. I mean, I'll be painting them, and every time I paint a cat, I paint a cat so many times, and I'll look at them and I thought, oh, I didn't make those toes big enough.
This is great, Julie. I'm gonna have to go. My son haven't seen.
But anyway, I just wanted to show you that this is how you do it, and I don't want to keep everybody too long.
Yeah, no, my son arrived at 6 o'clock, and I haven't
great
seen him for 6 months. So
that's wonderful. Go see him.
Yeah. Bye bye.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Okay, it's probably almost 9 now. I can show you a finished one if you want me to, of this particular little guy. What I will tell you is that for the things like his eyes, usually, I told you that puddles wouldn't matter. Usually I have a really dark puddle, like up here it's dark, and I'll pick up the dark, and that's what I'll use for really dark places like his eyes. But I don't have enough of a puddle on this one. So I would probably have to go back to my palette to get some stuff to do his eyes. But usually I've done the background so oddly that I can pick up paint. There's plenty of paint on the Yupo paper that I don't have to go to my palette, but this time I did too good a job of spreading the paint out. But I'll go in and do his eyes. And he's got a white ring here. And then there's another, in cat's eyes, there's always a black streak right here for a shadow. There's always one right there, even though there's white. And then there's this darkness here along the side of his nose. And it's dark here, and light in the middle, and dark again up here. But it's all pushing this paint around that's already on the paper. And it's just moving it around. So if I'd done orange, if I'd put orange on here, he'd be an orange tabby. Right. And so then there's a white streak here, right? And a white one here. It goes up like this, like this. And he's got to be light here. And I've got to make sure I have enough darkness here to make sure that comes out. But it's all a matter of using the paint that's on the paper to get your values straight. That's all it is. And And you just follow your drawing. So when I turn this off, this is not, these are too black, but I'll slowly but surely fit those in until they're, this brush is really has a definite tip, and I use it for definite things. I'll have to get a softer brush to finish that out. But a small softer brush to finish that out. But that's basically what you do. And I'll get his tail also. And I'll go back in and hollow out his big toes. That's one of my favorite things because I love their paws. That really makes them look like a cat when they're finished with those big toes. I'll show you the finished one. But you just have to work with the Yupo. And it's something you have to get used to, pushing the stuff around on the paper. Candy knows, she does Yupo all the time really beautifully. And it's just something you have to get used to, is pushing that stuff around on the paper till you get it in a place. And you have to try different brushes, because different brushes move the Yupo differently. See this one? It isn't as sharp as that other one. See how it puts the stuff down less sharply than the other one did.
For how long does it stay wet?
Well, it depends. This is drying
around.
very quickly tonight. It's drying very quickly, and it, I don't know why, because in the other time I've done 2 of these already, and it stayed wet longer. Maybe I was using more water. Maybe the heat wasn't on. Tom got cold, so he turned on the heat for a couple of days. So maybe just our house is drier right now. But let me show you the finished one. But that's how you do it. And like
Thank you.
yeah, let me show you the finished ones so you can get an idea of how they come out.
This was really fun for me to try the Yupo, Julie. This is my first.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Really interesting.
There you go. So, and then this was the other thing I wanted to tell you. Once you finish, you have to put him in context. So on this one that I did with spray paint over here, I put him in some grass. Otherwise, he looks like he's standing and he's floating. So I put some grass and made him look like he's a little ragamuffin outside. And this one I just made, all I did was put something for him to stand on. So I didn't do the whole paint, background of the picture he's in. I just made something for him to stand on. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's what you have to do. That's all. You have any questions?
Oh.
You were very patient. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. Great.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Pat didn't mean to yell at you guys. He was yelling at the cat.
Oh, okay. No. I enjoyed seeing everybody. That was my favorite part.